The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, 1932. It's the most remarkable after the love song of J.L. Cooper, because that was first published and that was a bit smaller compared to Wasteland. And this poem, The Wasteland, uh, like in the shallowness of modern life, the modern man, and the split personality and the confusion and skepticism and whims of modern people that have already been discussed in that poem that is the love song of J. Alfred Cooper. But here he dealt with these things a bit in detail, and specifically the aftermaths of World War One, that how it had changed uh, the lifestyle. Like there is no mention of this thing, but what I have discerned from it is that uh, because of the loss of too many people, too many lives in World War One, it cast a kind of uncertainty to life and an absurdity and a meaninglessness in life. And people started disbelieving too many things, and things go out of control and humanity is at loss. And you'll remember that the second coming, where he says that utility is used upon uh, uh, human beings, and that uh, they have become like animals, that kind of animals which are not conscious of what wrongs they are doing to other humans. So there is a beastliness has emerged out of this World War One, and people have stopped trusting humanity as human beings, and at the same time they have lost interest in too many things, specifically in terms of morality, in terms of ethics, in terms of uh, caring for others. So it caused some kind of shallowness which could not be treated somehow. And he recorded this thing in detail, and he used wonderful symbols. Although in the Love Song of J.R. Cooper, you saw that there were too many symbols, but here he is incorporating some other simple symbols, and he is actually in this poem specifically, the Wasteland. He is incorporating too many things from across the cultures. I mean to say that it's not only Greek culture or Roman culture or British culture that he's relying on. He has gone for to Celtic culture, to Buddhism, to Hinduism, and even the early Christianity, which was there in Africa, in Egypt. So he has referred to them, and he has encompassed too many things into the wasteland. First, a few words about the title and why he has titled it The Wasteland. So, I mean, a practical reading, practical in the sense of practical criticism, where we are not supposed to consider the context and the phenomena uh, at which the poem emerged, but rather a detached or a disinterested, uh, dislocated kind of reading of poetic piece that is called practical criticism, where the poet is not to be discussed, where the time and place is not to be discussed, just the words or the poem itself is considered to be an entity existing by itself and containing its own meaning, irrespective of the personality of the poet or the influence of the age or the influence of the geography in which the poem was written. Um, to be critical of this thing, it is impossible because you cannot detach. Like there's no chance of detaching author's intention in the work. Anyhow, but I mean to say that from this practical criticism point of view, people have referred to it a number of ways, like simply considering the wasteland. The wasteland is that land which is not productive, where there is a kind of dryness and there is a kind of shallowness, and the land is not fertile and nothing can be produced out of it. And And even if there are little chances, so there are no people to tell the land. That's why it has turned into a wasteland without any productivity of it. And in terms of these things, some of the critics are of the opinion that he is referring to the Western world, specifically British and United States of America, that they have become barren lands, like what is spiritually, ethically, morally called life, productive life, that is no more there. So Europe and entire West world, it has become a wasteland for reason that nothing good or nothing for the betterment of humanity can be the best of it. This is not only this thing. If you study, the Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald, you'll come to know that he also has criticized the American dream for this thing that, and he wrote, I don't know, I should not have mentioned him, but in his uh, I, uh, Enlightenment, that is a book that he has written. Uh, dialectics of enlightenment and negative dialectic and a critical theory. That is a sequence of three books that he has written. And he is what we call, he has done a post-mortem of this concept of development and similar like this what Eliot is portraying in the West. And I'm referring to Adorno and Horkheimer only to refer to this thing that what in the wasteland this man is talking about. So the same is the case with Horkheimer and Adorno in their dialectics of enlightenment and negative enlightenment and critical theory. So they have talked of this thing that what was seen to be progress and development has turned into something else. Adorno and Horkheimer have specifically targeted World War II, that is the mass level killing of Jews in from 1939 to 1945, specifically the Auschwitz concentration camp, where Jews were detained for quite a long time. And too many people have worked upon this thing. So that will be what you call it a practical, critical lens of on the poem or the title of the poem, that is the wasteland. But here, when we are considering it from authorial point of view, that is authorial intention and the context in which it is written, context will include two things, that is the geographical location of the poem and the time of the poem. Like, space and time, they are so much important that you cannot get out of them. How much you try, but you cannot get out of them. And that's why the title of Eliot celebrated work refers to a myth in from ritual to romance is a poem in which Weston is the author of the poem, describes a kingdom where the king is important in terms of reproduction due to an injury to his reproductive organs. The king is known as Fisher King because all he does is fishing and waiting for a miracle to cure him. The king's importance has a bad effect on the kingdom also and has turned the kingdom into a wasteland. What is required to restore the land back from wasteland to fertile land, a hero had to complete many tasks. So the thing is that how this symbol of Fisher King and this uh, importance of the king, this myth has been, and this is referred to as the myth of Holy Grail. Holy Grail is supposed to be a treasure. In terms, it is a treasure, and it was believed that this Fisher King had this treasure with him, and it is actually a treasure of pleasure or happiness that happiness cannot do with it. So probably because the king had lost his potency and he was unable to do what he was having this treasure with him, so he was living, but And there are too many versions. If you search for the Holy Grail um, story, so there are too many versions of it. And in so many versions, there is one version in which finally the king's impotency is cured and he becomes a normal human being and he is capable of reproduction, and then the dry land, this dry land and wasteland is restored back. But here in the case of Eliot, whose concern is with British, with Western worlds in specific, that is the European continent and the North American and South American continents, his concern is there. Who is going to do this? So he is looking for his own miracles with respect to this thing, that uh, this wasteland may also be restored somehow. The poem engages in the discourse of the moral decay of Europe after World War One. The work of Holy Grail is a symbolic representation of this. Holy Grail, I talked of it, this is a myth, there is a treasure, and people are searching for it. But whenever something which cannot be achieved and people are trying to achieve that thing is referred to as Holy Grail. An objective or a goal which is rationally and reasonably not capable of being achieved. So it is referred to as Holy Grail. That is something you are looking for. Like we have these adages, these proverbs, sayings that wild geese chase, and so many other things where we are. This thing is communicated that uh, this cannot be accomplished. Like there is no chance of it. A lot of efforts are like that. So Holy Grail is symbolic of this thing, that how Europe has suffered from moral decay. Eliot himself has recorded these things, that from Ritual to Romance 1920 by J.C. Weston. This is a poem which inspired him, and he referred to that specific myth I will talk about. And then Golden Bough, A Study in Magic and Religion 1890 by Frazier. This is another poet in 1890. He was inspired by that. And there are two other reasons that why his first wife, Vivian, uh, because I don't know, I'm not sure about this thing, but there was some sort of failure or some sort of impotency on the part of uh, T.S. Eliot involved in his marital relation with his first wife Vivian, and they're separated after some time because they couldn't cope with one another's mentality and one another's physicality. And when he is referring to, I've known them all, and I've known them all, I've known them all the arms uh, on the table or about the shawl. So he is referring to that thing, that how he had failed somehow in this regard. So he thought of reproducing that experience, reliving that experience in another kind of way, and that was in the West End. Again, although it was there in the Love Song of Kuba, but here again he is reliving that experience in referring to this Kingfisher and Holy Grail thing. And partly because Ezra Pound was a transcendentalist, in the sense because he had belonged to the school of thought of Emerson and Ellen Bowen. So he was a person who had a very strong urge for spirituality. For this reason, he influenced in the writing, to the writing of the West End. It was first 800 lines and finally reduced to 433 lines in 1920 edition. I talked about this thing. Yeats combines the legend of the Holy Grail and the Fisher King with dignities of contemporary British society. That's what is happening right now in the 20th century. Eliot implies many literary and cultural illusions from the Western canon, such as Dante's Divine Comedy. It is a very popular work of 1460 by Dante, and Shakespeare also has written something like that. Then he is referring to Buddhism. Buddha, you know him, that this mystical practices, nirvana and some other things like that. And the Hindu Upanishads, that is the latest version of Vedas written in Sanskrit, about Hindus teaching in rituals and practices. The poem shifts between voices of satire and prophecy, featuring abrupt and unannounced changes of speaker, location, and time, and conjuring a vast and dissonant range of cultures and literatures. I've already talked about these things. So first thing is satire and prophecy. So sometimes he is satirizing what is happening, and other times he is prophesying, uh, predicting that what is going to happen next, what is going to happen in the future, teaching abrupt and unannounced changes of speaker. At one moment it is a kid who is speaking, another moment it is an old woman speaking, another moment it is a young girl speaking, another moment it is a lover who is speaking, and aged man speaking. So, the speaker is abruptly changed. Locations are also changed. At one moment it is one place, another moment it is another, and time, and conjuring a vast and dissonant range of culture. And it brings in far distant range of cultures and literatures into its discussion. Now, the most important part of today's discussion is the poem is divided into five sections. The first, the burial of the dead, is to that thing. Two references, illusions are here. One is to Dante's Divine Comedy, and another is to this man's Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. So it introduces the diverse themes of disillusionment and despair, in that how there is kind of despair and disappointment in the world. The second, a game of chess, which is my favorite part, and I'm going to work on this thing. And implies alternating narrations in which vignettes or several characters address those themes in the experience. The first, the fire sermon, the third part, offers a philosophical meditation in relation to the imagery of death and views of self-denial in juxtaposition influenced by Augustine and Hippo. Saint Augustine in the 3rd and 4th century is a wonderful figure. I am honored to have read his entire autobiography of 513 pages, and wonderful stuff is there in that. So, because he himself had this thing like Saint Augustine had suffered a dryness in his youth, and he was involved in too many cynical and other things, and he had been superstitious about too many things, like whimsical about God and about prophets and so many things. But later on, after he was 30 years of age or 30 plus, so he converted to Orthodox Christianity. Although in his youth, when he was a teenager, his parents wanted him to be a clergyman, to be a priest, but he didn't like those things by that time, and he became a Parsi at some time. That is the follower of Zarathustra, Zarathustrian religion, the fire worshippers. He became, and then he became Minuchian, another religion that was a sub branch of Parsiism. But after that, he turned into spirituality later on. So that is why he is referring to this thing, self-denial and juxtaposition, influenced by Augustine of Hippo and Eastern religions. The thing is that Augustine, then after his age of 30, he lived a long life, I think some nearly 100 years. So he, after 30 years of age, he denied himself all sort of pleasures and luxuries. And you know that Buddhism is also teaching this thing that we must deny. Even in Hindu religion, those pandits and those Brahmin class people, they are supposed to avoid luxuries and to live simple life. Like life, you may consider what Gandhi was doing. He was, despite being a prestigious person, he was holding two pieces of small cloth is valueless and rough, cheap cloth is. And this is because his religion taught him to be simple and to be very much limited in exploiting resources. So this thing from the Eastern religion, both Christianity is also Eastern religion, and no religion is actually born in West. So that's why Eastern religions influenced him. After a fourth section, Death by Water, which includes a brief lyrical petition, the culminating fifth section, what the thunder said, concludes with an image of judgment where he is passing a judgment on what has gone previously. So we'll be talking of it in detail uh, from time to